This is Gene Bailey. If you're unfamiliar with the guy, he's a far-right extremist, absolutely loves Donald Trump, would do anything for the guy. And he's on Kenneth Copeland's Victory channel. So he pushes far-right extremist Christian nationalist ideals through this entire TV show. And he kind of frames it as a news show, even though it's very obviously not. So I want to give this a listen, see what they have to say for themselves. The title of this one is We're in a Job 38:11 moment. I haven't read that scripture, but I'm sure they'll tell us what it is. So let's give this a listen, see what these nutter butters of epic proportions have to lay down for us. And while we do, we're going to play a game. I'm playing Breath of the Wild at this immediate moment, Breath of the Wild 2, but I'm going to switch to Mario in a couple of minutes. It should just be in the background, won't bother you too much if you've never played it or whatever. All right, let's listen to this.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching Flashpoint. I'm Gene Bailey. We're glad you're with us today. So much happening in the news. Let's get right into it. Welcome my guest on at the top of the show here, Lance Wallnau, Pastor Hank Kuhneman, Rick Green. Welcome, gentlemen, to the program.
These people are absolute nutcases from left to right. Gene Bailey is the host, as mentioned. Lance Wallnau is what's known as a Seven Mountains Dominionist, Seven Mountains Mandate. And it's a complicated thing, but basically he's a Christian nationalist that has an actual plan to take over the United States in the name of his specific denomination of Christianity. And trust me, if you're a Christian, you want nothing to do with his denomination of Christianity. It's as extreme as it gets. No joke. Now, as for Hank Kuhneman, he is yet another Seven Mountains Dominionist. Extremist to the core. Everybody on this channel is a Seven Mountains Dominionist on this TV show. Rick Green on the right ran for Congress and was a congressman in Texas, a state congressman for a while, and then ran to be a judge and lost, and then sued all of his opponents for slandering him or some other nonsense during the election. Just embarrassing, man. All these people are embarrassing. Okay. Now you have some context for who they are. Let's keep listening here.
Great stuff in our nation. Great, as in very newsworthy. Let me show you what happened today in Washington, D.C. Look at some of these shots here with thousands of supporters, John Hagee writes, of Israel to send a message to the world. Israel, you are not alone.
Oh, okay. So not too long ago, wow, this is fascinating. Not too long ago, these people were screaming like banshees about the fact that there was a pro-Palestine protest made up of Jewish protesters. Jews from the United States were protesting what Israel, the government of Israel, was doing in their name against the Palestinians. And these people lost their shit over it. They can't handle that. Can't handle the possibility that people have minds of their own. You either have our mind or you shut your fucking mouth. That's the way these people seem to view things. Here we go.
American values, and Israel is our greatest ally. She does not stand with Israel. As a matter of fact, she hates Israel.
Talking about Rashida Tlaib. She just espoused an opinion on the subject. She doesn't hate Israel. She is, like me, disgusted with what Israel is up to right now. Disgusted with what the government is doing.
As much as she hates America.
She hates it as much as she hates America. Come on, man. She's a congressman, by the way, if you didn't know.
Well, that was evident. In fact, let me play just a piece of this clip of Representative Rashida Tlaib outside addressing the mass. Watch.
Continue to watch people think it's okay to bomb a hospital where children... You know what's so hard sometimes is watching those videos and the people telling the kids
All right, now we know...
Like, wait, what was... I thought they said she's a terrorist. What was terroristic about what she just said? Really? I mean, they gave us, 15 seconds of what she said? What was the threat? What was the terrorist statement? Where was the Hamas endorsement? You know they showed us the most disgusting of the most disgusting of what Rashida Tlaib said. they would search out the most horrific statement that she said and highlight that as a representation of her overall views. What was disgusting in what she said? Really listen to this.
People think it's okay to bomb a hospital.
There's some debate over whether or not they had anything to do with a recent hospital bombing. If they didn't, just assume they didn't for the sake of argument, they still bombed 61 other hospitals, okay? Israel is the government of Israel seems to have a policy of bombing hospitals. So I don't want to hear any of this shit. Oh, they don't bomb hospitals. Yeah, they do. They bomb them regularly.
Children. You know what's so hard sometimes is watching those videos and the people telling the kids
All right,
don't cry.
now we know now, of course, that that was not, the facts are that Israelis did not bomb that hospital.
Again, I don't know if they bombed that or not. I feel it's unequivocally proven that Israel probably did, but, you know, I guess we'll never know for sure one way or another. But Israel did bomb 61 others up to that moment, so... Anyways, these people just freak out over nonsense. This is how propaganda spreads right here. These people spread it.
But let's don't get the facts involved in the middle of anything, of a good protest. How is it that Tlaib and her squad continue to get a pass from the press? What's the deal here? You would think at this point, this would be American press would go, wait a minute, this is wrong.
What's wrong? What is wrong? She's crying because people are dying. Aren't representatives, federal representatives, supposed to care about people's well-being? Especially if we're giving taxpayers to their murderers? Shouldn't we care about that stuff? Seems like it to me. Jesus, dude, what is wrong with these people? For real.
While they're still spreading the Hamas lies about what's actually happening in Gaza. Why is that, Congresswoman?
Yeah, that's a question I can't answer. Actually, Gene, you see, she was lying right there. She's a liar and she's an actress. She's an actress just like those protesters were in their orchestrated campaign. And
they're crisis actors. In an orchestrated campaign, people showed up to a protest, not because it's popular, but because they've been paid to. Totally. You may not realize this, but this whole line about paying protesters to be crisis actors, it's actually an anti-Semitic dog whistle. Yes, she's saying that this is being done on the behalf of Palestine, but this is an anti-Semitic line that's been given about Jews since day one. This is invented, this line, to hurt Jews. That's been the goal all along, to hurt Jews. To claim that they are paying the deep state to blah, 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 or the deep state's paying people to whatever.
They were acting like they want peace. But in reality, none of them ever said that Hamas should be handed over and tried for war crimes.
Hamas should be handed over and tried for war crimes. See how easy that is? Everybody agrees with that, okay? Especially Rashida Tlaib. Yes, hand them over. They're bad. Hamas bad. Everybody agrees. But weirdly, almost nobody, seemingly, certainly nobody in the federal government, except Rashida Tlaib, maybe a couple others, seem to recognize how deeply grotesque and evil the Israeli government is acting right now. I said Israeli government, not Jews. There's a distinction there that the Israeli government does not want you to make or recognize.
For the horrific murders that took place in Israel when Hamas came across the border and murdered innocent Israelis, women.
Yes, Hamas bad. Agreed.
And children, grandparents, kidnapping them and murdering them later. No, they didn't denounce any of that. And
I denounce it.
That's exactly who Rashida Tlaib. She's a terrorist sympathizer. She's like having a Hamas member in Congress.
Look who's talking, terrorist sympathizer over here. Terrorist sympathizer Marjorie Taylor Greene. Rashida Tlaib is not a terrorist sympathizer. She does not agree with Hamas or what Hamas is doing or any of that stuff. She, like myself, is disgusted with what Israel is doing. It is about as horrific as it gets, for real.
Congress, which should never happen, and she needs to be held accountable. That's why I'm introducing a censure resolution.
She needs to be held accountable for espousing her personal opinions. Wow. Free speech, Marjorie Taylor Greene over here, right?
Let's take a quick look at where you were yesterday. Watch.
Right, so there's a protest in front of one of the House office buildings. Not the House of Representatives, not the Capitol building. Just an office building where a lot of congressmen were at the time. Would you be surprised to find out that this is actually a Jewish anti-genocide group? This group is horrified by the fact that Israel is perpetrating a genocide in their name. I would be horrified by that too. I'm horrified by the genocide alone, and I'm not even like part of the group.
All right, Congresswoman, that's a scary sight to most Americans. You were up.
Yeah, scary sight, man. People protesting using their their First Amendment rights. Boy, is that scary. How scary is that?
There, looking down from that balcony, it looked eerily familiar. It quickly spilled into the Cannon building, looking suspiciously like an insurrection to me.
An insurrection. Okay, first of all, it was not attempting to interrupt official House proceedings. Second, they weren't demanding that the House change something that had already been voted upon. They're just trying to get the House to make decisions that are less genocidal. And third, that's a completely 100% public area. People are allowed to walk into that building to their heart's content. There are no bars on entering that building. The House of Representatives, the Capitol building, there are bars on that. You have to be cleared for, all kinds of shit by Homeland Security and everything else to be able to access the House of Representatives or to access the Capitol building. And despite that fact, the January 6th rioters and insurrectionists walked right in anyways. They broke laws just simply being there, let alone the fact that they busted windows in to get inside, let alone the fact that they did so in an attempt to stop Congress from holding its stuff, completely ignoring all of that stuff. They still broke laws just being there. And they're pretending this is an insurrection when it was a public place that they're allowed to be in. They were arrested because they didn't have a protest permit for inside the building, only outside the building. They stood inside the rotunda and protested there, but they weren't allowed to do that, so they were arrested and then released. Really, they were detained more than anything, and then released, because there's really nothing. I mean, what is that, a fine at best for protesting without a permit? I don't know.
Tell me, from your perspective, what happened yesterday?
That's exactly what it looked like, and it was. And there was security intel the day before that they were coming, that there would be pro-Palestinian.
Well, there's not security intel. They got a protest permit. That's not intel that's been gathered by the intelligence community. That is them filing paperwork to get a permit to do that. Now, just skip forward a little bit here. Listen to what she says here.
For the rotunda, the Capitol Police ended up arresting hundreds of these people. And I want you to know, Gene, these were not simple Jewish protesters.
Catch that? They were Jewish protesters protesting what Israel is doing in their name. That is what was happening there. How absolutely sad is that? That these people have to protest against the Israeli government to prevent people from thinking that they're responsible for a full-blown genocide. It is just wrong, man. Anyway, yeah, so that was what they were talking about earlier. Let's jump back to the original one that we were talking about. I guess now they had a pro-Israel group come in. Think about how the coverage differs between the pro-Palestine and the pro-Israel protests. Think about how it's framed differently here.
Of Israel to send a message to the world. Israel, you are not alone. The reports are over 200,000, maybe upwards to 250. We don't know, but we know for sure over 200,000 people were there. So far, I'm hearing no reports of violence or issues against any of the protesters there standing in support of Israel. Pastor Hank, let me go to you first on this. When you see this many people turn out for Israel, not just a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was, that there were 300,000 showing up and protesting on behalf of Palestine. What does this say to you when you see this?
Wait. That's interesting. He said protesting on behalf of Palestine rather than on behalf of Hamas. That was a perfect propaganda opportunity he had there. I can't believe that he decided not to run with that.
Many people turn out for Israel. Not just a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was, that there were 300,000 showing up and protesting on behalf of Palestine.
300,000. Do you have any idea how many people that is? That's insane. No. There were not 300,000 people showing up and protesting on behalf of Palestine. It was 10,000 at the Texas Capitol. Let me search for Washington, D.C. Tens of thousands gather for pro-Palestinian march in D.C. to demand Gaza ceasefire. I see the source they got this from originally, PalestineStudies.org. I don't know what that is. I don't know if this is reputable. I mean, it could be pro-Israel, the country Israel, not the Jewish people. Could be a pro-Israel country, a pro-Israeli government website masquerading as a pro-Palestine website to spread propaganda. I don't know. But I trust NPR pretty well, so let's just see what NPR has to say here real quick to get an idea. You got to pull everything apart that these people say, honestly. No, I don't want this thing, whatever you were offering me. At least tens of thousands of people gathered in the nation's capital on Saturday for one of the biggest pro-Palestinian protests in the U.S. since the Israeli bombardment of Gaza began in response to the attack by Hamas militants last month. This article was written November 4th, so this was... Wait, let me pull up a calendar. November 4th was Saturday. Was this written the day it happened? This may have been written the day it happened. It looks like it was November 4th. Okay. Protesters are pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza, where health officials say thousands of Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes. The event, organized by several pro-Palestinian groups, began with an afternoon rally at Freedom Plaza before crowds began a march in a loop past the White House a few blocks away. At the rally, speakers' chants and messaging centered on calls to end U.S. funding for Israel in the war, accusing President Biden of backing a genocide of Palestinian people. Absolutely agree on that point. Yes, that is what is happening. Noor Jagama, a Palestinian organizer for the anti-war organization Code Pink, asked the crowd why we can hear these words and first-hand accounts from Gaza, yet the genocide still continues. Why do only 18 representatives and only one senator support a ceasefire? At Saturday's rally, protesters held a moment of silence for those who killed in Israel's response offensive. More than 9,480 Palestinians have been killed by by Israel's military attacks over the last 4 weeks, according to Gaza's health ministry. Wow. Insane. I'm not seeing any mention of 300,000. That is a lot of people. Hard doubt on that.
What?
I used to go to Jehovah's Witness conventions when I was a tiny little tyke, you know. One of those conventions that I went to long ago had 10,000 attendees, and it was a crowd the size of which you have never seen. The size of that crowd was crazy. It was huge. You needed binoculars to see the other side, really. 10,000 people is so many. It's kind of surprising to me that they would expect anybody to believe this 300,000 claim. Like, I'm going to need a little more evidence than that to believe it. I suppose it's possible that 300,000 marched, but that's the size of a large city. You telling me that a large city, 5 Huntington, West Virginias, the entire area of Huntington, West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia, Morgantown, doubled, they showed up to march? I'm sorry, man. I'm just not buying that, but okay.
What does this say to you when you see this?
Well, first of all, I think it's amazing that we're seeing people stand up for Israel. And that was really what my concern was when I first saw.
Yeah, no one's standing up for Israel. We haven't heard a peep from anybody about how great Israel is, huh? No politicians, no nothing. What a fucking joke, dude. This guy cannot be serious with this, right? He can't seriously believe this, can he? I mean, sure, he's trying to convince everybody else of it, but he cannot believe this, right?
That there was a lot of different protesting, against Israel. And you were seeing a lot of people marching for their cause, forgetting that this was a terrorist act against the people of Israel.
Absolutely it was, and it was disgusting and evil and wrong. And I'm horrified by the fact that by the fact that innocent people who lived in Israel had to deal with that. They were victimized by extremists, terrorists, and nutcases. That is so deeply sad to me. And you know what else is sad to me? The fact that that was used cynically by the Israeli government as a bludgeon against other innocent people.
And I was saying, when are we going to start seeing people rallying and supporting Israel? And I think it's a beautiful thing. And you said something very key, Pastor Gene, and that...
Your mom's a beautiful thing.
It's this. You said, as of now, and let's continue to believe so, it's peaceful. And that's very important when you look at this because...
because the other wasn't peaceful, right? Of course it was peaceful. But I'm very, very confident that they're going to claim that it wasn't. The Palestinian... the protests on behalf of Palestinians. I know they're going to claim it wasn't peaceful.
What's their motive? What's their purpose? What's their intent? They want peace, not only in Israel, Jerusalem, but they want peace in the Middle East. This isn't a violent, out of control, almost looking like an insurrection like
oh my, give me a break.
You're seeing in some of these anti-Israel protests that are...
They're not anti-Israel. See, it's little things. It's little words like that. If they can frame things in a very certain specific way to seem like, instead of saying pro-Palestine, they say anti-Israel. You know, it's all about hating Israel. If they can frame it in that specific way, they can convince people that they're on the right side of this debate, when, in fact, they are not. Just disgusting, dude. The level of sheer unadulterated propaganda being used here is wild.
Out there. So I think God is going to continue to bless Israel, as he said, and he's going to bless those who stand with Israel.
Amen. I agree with that. Let me go to you, Lance. Your thoughts, this Israel showing today?
Israel showing today. You know, I had a real awakening, Gene, during the Trump protest after he was,
right.
He won the election in 2016. I was staying at the Hilton Hotel, which is where we normally have the presidential or the National Day of Prayer there, and the president comes. And here was my aha, Gene. I was going...
He says the president normally comes to the National Day of Prayer celebration or breakfast or whatever the hell it is. That in itself is telling. That should tell you who really has the upper hand in this country. You know, they want to make themselves out to be these persecuted minorities or whatever. Talking like Christian nationalists like this guy right here. In reality, by no stretch of the imagination are these people oppressed, nor are they minorities. It's just insane that anybody buys this nonsense.
Here was my aha, Gene. I was going down through the lobby, and I saw a poster with 30 organizations listed that were all left-wing funded organizations, which means that they had the buses ready to go. They had they're all funded. They're the protest machine. Remember the Summer of Love when you had riots all over the place? These things weren't spontaneous expressions of national expression of feeling. They were organized, funded rallies.
All right, let me tell you what he's doing here right now. This is really important, and it has its roots in anti-Semitism, actually. Anti-Jewish beliefs. There's a document called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I'm not going to get into this too deeply because I've talked about it many times before, but the document was written originally between 1902 and 1906, right? And it was written in Tsarist Russia. It's believed to have been written originally by the predecessor to the KGB. It was called the Okhrana. And it was 27 steps to the Jewish plan for world domination. They claimed to, when I say they, I mean Tsarist Russia, the newspapers that published it and stuff. These newspapers and others, the people who published it, they claimed to have found this document on a dead Jewish soldier. That part is extremely important. I'll tell you why in a second. As it turns out, we found out in 1923, 20 years later basically, that it was fake. It was fabricated. It was directly plagiarized. It was lifted straight from a French satire book that never mentioned Jews in any way. I don't even remember the name of the French satire book, but it was an 1854 French satire book. Here's where it gets disturbing, okay? Okay, Greg Locke wrote a book forever ago, right? And I actually read this book on my Telltale Reads YouTube channel. Here's just a little excerpt from the book. Their most time-proven tactic. These Marxist groups are mostly comprised of paid actors leading disenfranchised anarchists looking for a place to rage. Paid actors. That's an important part here. Looking for a place to rage. These trained Marxist communist agitators, remember those words too, Marxist communist agitators, along with their Antifa allies, are funded by elitists who are trying to overthrow our free republic. This isn't just a theory, and it's good to know that most readers are wide awake to the ultimate blah, blah, blah. So why does he say it's not just a theory? Here's where it gets wild, dude. I can't find the contract at this immediate moment, but I will find it and I'll pop it up here when I do. It's fake, of course. The claim with this supposed contract is that George Soros paid protesters to go in there and wreak havoc. Protesters to riot or to whatever. Just do whatever it takes to destroy communities and make a mess out of everything, right? Of course, it's completely fake, and it's the exact thing that was claimed about Jews all the way back in 1902 in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This stuff is all recycled nonsense. All of it. It's recycled lies. They can't come up with anything new, seemingly. So anyways, they just recycled the claim that the Jews are... By the way, George Soros is Jewish. They're recycling the claims that Jews are funding all of these protests and funding this and that, blah, 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 controlling the world, and all this stuff is found on dead Jewish soldiers or protesters or whatever. And here's another interesting little line in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I actually have the document, the full book. It was compiled into a book. Okay, here is an example of the protocols. So here, this is Protocol 2, Protocol 3. No, this is page 3. This is Protocol 1 right here, I guess. Yeah. This is the appendix. Protocols. Wait, how is this structured? Okay. Yeah, here we go. This is Protocol 2, Protocol 3, Protocol 18, 20, 21. It's out of order, apparently. But here's what I wanted to show you guys. If you zoom in, Protocol 2 says this. Listen, this is written in 1902. Tell me if it sounds familiar to you. Where is it? By the way, anytime you see the word Goyim, it's a derogatory term for non-Jew. Basically, it's like Gentile, except it's kind of like they were trying to make you feel like you were a persecuted minority when you read this. So it's like a slur against, Gentiles. Our employees chosen from the Goyim cattle must be, see, they're even referring to non-Jews as cattle because they're slaves. They're only useful because they're whatever, Again, all fake. It was all written by people who hate Jews and want to destroy them. Our employees chosen from the Goyim cattle must be of a type that submit to blind and servile obedience to our specialists and advisors who've been trained from childhood to rule the affairs of the world. World domination is what they're reaching for with this. These are not empty words. Think of the successes we arranged for Darwinism, Marxism, Nietzscheism, etc. Isn't that fascinating? Talking about Darwinism and Marxism. I mean, we don't really talk about Nietzscheism today, but it blows me away that all the way back in the early 1900s, they're talking about that in the exact same way they are doing it today. To us, the Jews, I don't know why they had to insert the Jews. I thought that was assumed. The reason they had to insert it is because they wanted you to remember that this is coming from the Jews. It's bullshit, all of it. To us, the Jews, it is plain what a destructively disintegrating force these directives have had upon the minds of the Goyim cattle. I mean, it's just a joke, dude. It's so fake, it's ridiculous. And they go on to detail the 7 areas of society that they intend to take control of, the Jews do, to control everything. If you can get people to the very top of these areas of society, you can control society. And it doesn't matter if these people are Jewish or not. You basically enslave these people by taking control of these areas of society. Now, I don't feel like searching that out in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, but let me just show you Lance Wallnau repurposing what was in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion and building it out into his own ideology. This is Lance Wallnau explaining his plan for world domination, which he lifted right out of Protocols of the Elders of Zion, the fake, fabricated book.
3% of the population, roughly 3 to 4% of the population, are radical leftist elites.
No, they're not, but okay.
30% of the population are evangelical born-again Christians that are inclined to go towards Pentecostal language. I mean, we're really out there. 30% against 3%, but they neutralize the church because they're also in religion.
He's outlining the 7 mountains, i.e., the 7 areas of society that he wants to take control of in an effort to control society, all of society.
They changed the definition of marriage, so they've taken over family. They've totally taken over academia, so the education institutions are teaching leftist theology.
Complete nonsense. People are just teaching academics, and I guess it's leftist theology to just teach academics.
Or leftist ideology and silencing conservatives. They're controlling government right now. They've taken over legacy media. Hollywood, entertainment, and arts, and now they've got Wall Street. This is 3%. 30% of the population is Christian. How is it that 30% are dominated by 3%? They have a worldview for bringing their kingdom here now. We're told to pray thy kingdom come, but we put it off to the second coming.
Like, it's all completely made up. But that's the idea, generally. And again, he lifted this straight out of the Elders of Zion book, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. That's Lance Wallnau. That's what he believes. Or at least, I don't, I'm not convinced the guy even believes this. I don't think that he does, truthfully. But I think that, and I don't know if he's the one that lifted it out of the book or not. I have no clue. But somebody lifted it out of that book, and I believe that this guy is cynically using this book as an effort, or cynically using this ideology, in an effort to control the country. Honestly, it's absolutely absurd. So that should give you an idea of who Lance Wallnau is, his plans for society, and where he got those plans. Just disgusting, man. So let's just step back again, listen to what he said one more time.
And here was my aha, Gene. I was going down through the lobby, and I saw a poster with 30 organizations listed that were all left-wing funded organizations.
Left-wing funded means the Jews are funding them, i.e. George Soros is funding them. That's what the far right is talking about when they say left-wing funded. Their left-wing boogeyman is George Soros, which is a Jewish guy that survived the Holocaust. As if the right is not funded. I mean, who's funding these things? On the left, it's largely small dollar donations, people that care about this stuff.
They had the buses ready to go. They had they're all funded. They're the protest machine. Remember the Summer of Love when you had riots all over the place? These things weren't spontaneous expressions of national expression of feeling. They were organized, funded rallies.
So he's saying these are cynical plans by the world elite, read Jews, to control society. That's really what he's saying here. Now, Lance Wallnau, I'm saying that with complete confidence. Yes, he's coming out in favor of Israel at this immediate moment. The reason that I'm so confidently claiming that Lance Wallnau is opposed to Jewish people or is spreading Jewish conspiracy theories is because Lance Wallnau doesn't like Jews. In fact, he fucking hates Jews, actually, in reality. I'm not talking about Israel. He loves the Israeli government, but fucking hates Jews. And the reason I say that is because as part of the Christian nationalist ideology, he must fucking hate Jews because they rejected Jesus. In fact, they're responsible for Jesus' death in his mind. Even though that little piece of ideology doesn't even make sense to me. Like, Jesus was supposed to have died according to Christian lore or whatever, right? But that's neither here nor there. The reason he likes the Israeli government is because it is necessary. It must exist before Jesus can come back. That is why he's constantly supporting Israel, doing whatever he can for them. When the time comes, the end is here and Jesus returns or whatever, the first thing he's going to do, according to Lance Wallnau and his bastardized interpretation of, the Bible, according to him, the first thing Jesus is going to do is kill 2/3 of the Jews in Israel. The other 1/3 are going to convert to Christianity, and that is why they'll be spared. That is this guy's viewpoint on society. It should tell you something loud and clear. He fucking hates Jews. Always has. His interest is in bringing Jesus back, basically. And supporting Israel as a country is a necessary piece of that. That is as deep as it goes for him. So anyways, all this support for Israel is about as shallow as it gets, is the bottom line here. Okay. Now, and that's why you're hearing anti-Semitic dog whistles along with support for Israel. All right, let's keep listening.
And that was my aha. When we show up, like, to use an infamous reference, like January 6th, there was no list at the Hilton of 30 organizations coming together for an insurrection.
Yes, there was. What the fuck are you talking about? Of course there was. The Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and a billion other groups out there actually planned. In fact, there were organized efforts on places like 4chan, 8chan, the Donald.win, where when it left Reddit, it moved to Patriots.win. I'm sorry, the Donald subreddit moved to Patriots.win eventually. There's an organized group from there that was going to the Capitol building. That's where a lot of the organizing took place, was on there. So I don't want to hear any of this shit. There was no organization taking place. There absolutely was. To be fair, I will say this. There was a group of people that were just there because they supported their God Emperor Donald Trump, as they call him. I'm not using that flippantly. I'm telling you a name that's used for Donald Trump. They were just there to support their God Emperor, and it got out of hand and turned into a riot. There were others who are now facing down 30 years in prison. Leader of the Oath Keepers, leader of the Proud Boys, Joe Biggs, and others. Those people planned very specifically how this was going to go and how they were going to instigate a riot. They planned this entire thing from beginning to end. They even brought gloves to bust in windows so they could access the Capitol. This was planned. The whole thing. As a matter of fact, Roger Stone, Donald Trump's resident scumbag, met with the leaders, Oath Keepers leader and the leader of the Proud Boys and others, a few days before in a parking lot, and planned how this is going to go. And they placed weapon caches around the city, buried them nearby, for just in case it was necessary, just in case they got to where they wanted to be in this whole thing. The plan was to take a hostage, find one of the Congress members, and hold them hostage until they got what they wanted, which was for Mike Pence or somebody else, Nancy Pelosi, to come out and negotiate with them. And when that happened, when they came out to negotiate, they were going to take them too and kill them. It was an insurrection. And some useful idiots joined in the insurrection as simple rioters, not realizing what was going on, like the QAnon shaman, which is why he got 4 years instead of 30. So I don't want to hear any of this bullshit about them not being organized or whatever other thing. No, they were organized.
There was just Americans getting on planes and showing up. So it's even bigger is what I'm saying. Conservatives by nature are not a protesting movement.
Really? No? Okay.
When you see 1 million people or 500,000 people and it's conservative, it's more powerful. It's individuals making the decision to go. It's not
right, and it's funded by left-wing nutcases like George Soros, you know, that famous Jew that survived the Holocaust. Now he's taking all of his money because he controls all the big banks, of course, and he's rich as a result of being Jewish in their minds. He's taking all of his fat stacks and he's pouring it into manipulating the U.S. political system. These are not serious people. Honestly. This is insane. Sadly, people buy this nonsense. People believe it.
Funded organizations coordinated in a demonstration.
Yeah, let me go to you, Rick. You hear what Lance is saying. Does that ring true to you as well?
I don't care if it rings true to him as well. It's false. And aside from that, of course it's going to ring true to him. These people, everybody on this thing right now, are going to agree with each other without fail. They will all agree. This is a gigantic jerk fest, okay? They're just yanking it to each other's ideas. And they're going to continue yanking it to each other's ideas. That's the point of this show.
200,000 plus really means a whole lot more people on the conservative side.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but there weren't 200,000 people. Like, that's insane at any point.
Yeah, without a doubt. To put it simply, you know, conservatives actually work for a living, right? We have families we're raising
right.
and ministry.
Really? You got to be kidding me. People on the left don't work for a living. They just go to protests and they're paid by George Soros, apparently. Come on, man. Their view of the world is so ass backwards. It can't be real, right? It's not real. You can't convince me this shit is real, and these are honest actors right now. Get help, guys.
Ministries we're running, so it's a lot harder to get conservatives together. Most of the time when you have the left-wing protesters, they were living off the government anyway, or, you know, being paid to protest. So Lance is
being paid to protest right there again. He's laying down anti-Semitic propaganda, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. That is what these people do best. I'm sure they realize how anti-Semitic these conspiracy theories are, but their audience probably doesn't. They probably have no idea. They probably have no clue how they're being used cynically to spread anti-Semitic propaganda. Again, a lot of the people that watch this show are probably as anti-Semitic as it gets, honestly. Because they don't like Jews. They killed Jesus. You know what they like? Israel existing as a country. They need it to exist.
absolutely right. It's actually true, Gene, even in, you know, legislative hearings, trying to get people that are on our side to testify at hearings is a lot harder. They got to take off work. They got to leave their family. They got to, you know, so it's just, unfortunately, the game is a little bit rigged for the other side because they're essentially professional protesters. I mean, they live to do that sort of thing. So, yeah, I agree totally with what Lance is saying. And what struck me as I'm watching the rally and then, of course, hearing Netanyahu talking about almost a warning to the U.S. that we better step up and we better stay involved. Otherwise,
I didn't hear about this. Holy shit, dude. Netanyahu warning the United States? Please.
You know, it's coming to us as well. But Lance warned us about this, you know, weeks ago. I mean, listen.
Oh, I see. So Netanyahu was saying if you don't do something, it'll, you know, they're going to come over your southern border or some other shit. Come on.
Hamas they're not just going to go after Israel and these types of people that are anti-establishment, if you will, or really want to do anything they can to destroy whatever the government that's in place. They want to tear it down so that they can rebuild it in a Marxist way. These things are headed our way. And so seeing that many people take the time to go to D.C., take the time to be there for that rally from our side supporting Israel, huge. And I loved seeing the ladies with one of them with the Israeli flag and one with the American flag. They look like much better than the Marvel movie that's coming out. Don't spend any money supporting them. Those look like superheroes to me.
Oh, yeah, don't spend money supporting Marvel because Marvel is evil. It's owned by Disney. And, of course, Disney is a bunch of Cuckosaurus Rexes who love to spread gay to children or some other nonsense. I don't even know. Just insane, bro. Come on. Come back to reality with everybody else, man. Insane. Absolutely insane. Somebody says, Dark Knight says I should check out Robin Bullock's last 11th hour. You know what? I'm going to pull that up. Good suggestion. Which one is it? Do you know? Do you remember the name of it? Like, is it number 6 or whatever? Hold on. Let me see here. Live. Okay, yeah, here we go. 11th hour, number 6. Was it from 22 hours ago? Was it from last week? 2 weeks? 3 weeks ago? Last Tuesday's the most recent. Okay, then this one, I guess. We're gonna watch the rest of the other thing, but I just wanted to. I wouldn't mind watching this. Hold on.
Volcano.
Yeah, he likes to fancy himself a rock singer, a rock star, or whatever.
Destiny is clear.
You know, I'm kind of risking a copyright thing here, but I really love guitar, so I'm just going to look at this for a second. Hold on.
To your destiny, come on and make a sound.
That's beautiful. I love that. He's doing some hammers. Why did you jump to the drums? I don't care. Okay, that's a weird sound. I'm not a fan. Is he even playing on a chord? I'm not sure. That's his wife, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew that. That's Robin Bullock, his wife. Robin and Robin Bullock. And she plays the synths, I guess. She plays the piano. At least he didn't give her a job like playing the triangle or playing the, what is it? The maracas or the bells or whatever. That's usually what girlfriends and or wives get to play when they join the boyfriend's band. Okay.
A prophetic sound the Lord spoke to me this morning.
Oh, God. The Lord spoke to him this morning? Okay, go on.
The prophetic sound is a bridge to destiny. It's a bridge that you can walk over right into destiny. And the prophetic sound.
Okay, I want to see more guitar here.
When you get into that sound in the cool of the day. Never when
Really? Is he not playing anymore?
Battle for the one from that bridge. The Hebrew says it was a prophetic.
Yeah, I guess he's not playing anymore. Okay, so let's see. 15 minutes roughly. When does he put the guitar down and start preaching? We'll be right back, right here.
Today, welcome you back to the 11th hour today. The sound that we play.
Awesome. All right, I'll pause it right here, and we will come to this. Either today or tomorrow. We will see about that. I appreciate the recommendation. That sounds interesting. Just looking here. Frankenstein, sync your audio. Thank you for reminding me on that. It's terrible to try to deal with that. How's the kitty? Doing well. Fairy Flora, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate it. Strawberry Shorty, thank you for the gift subs. That is awesome. Bubbles, thank you for the gift subs. I'm sorry, Bubbles, thank you for the sub. Yeah, the sub. And I think I'm caught up. Awesome. Okay. Cool. All right, let's continue on, shall we?
I agree. It is good. And I
like these people agree with like literally everything that's said on this show. Everybody agrees with each other. That's kind of a superfluous thing to say here, isn't it?
It's encouraging to see that many people standing up, especially with what happened. Let me show you this, Benny Johnson, what happened in Columbus Square in New York. Pro-Palestinian protesters.
Does he mean Columbus Circle? Is there a Columbus Square? I'm not aware of a Columbus Square. Columbus Circle is on the corner of Central Park. It's on the corner. If you're looking at a map, it's the bottom left corner of Central Park. And there's like a mall there and stuff, just various things to do. At the top of the mall, there are a couple of extremely expensive 3 Michelin star restaurants there, like $2,500 for 2 people kind of deal. It's insane how much they cost. Per se and Massa, I believe, are the 2 that are up there. But anyways, yeah. So they're saying that he held a thing at Columbus Circle, I assume? Unless there's a square that I'm unaware of.
They took over Columbus Square. In fact, let me show you some of the video.
They took over Columbus Square? You mean they protested at Columbus Square?
Right now.
Dude, I love it how these people absolutely lose their shit when they find out somebody is protesting something in the U.S. and it's not them that's doing the protesting. I thought these people respected the hell out of the First Amendment. What happened to I have a right to say whatever the hell I want? What happened to all that cancel culture garbage that they've been talking about this whole time? They just, it slipped their mind, I guess, huh?
All right, Lance, you see this, Lance? I mean, they're New York City. It's still shocking to me that I've really had, you talk about an aha moment, trying to come to the grips that this is really going on right there in America, in New York City, of all places, that we're seeing this. So Americans do have to stand up. We do have to not just stand up, but...
Wow, so they're bitching about somebody protesting, saying that this is super wrong that they're protesting, and they're saying that Americans need to protest in response. Fantastic. Okay.
But be ready to stand for what we believe in. Your thoughts?
Donald Trump was accused of being xenophobic. He's infinitely practical. What he's saying is you don't want to be bringing people into the United States that don't like the United States. You don't want to bring people in who fundamentally hate the West, living off the West.
Okay, so he's claiming that the United States has people coming over the border that are from the Middle East, and they are terrorists, and they hate America, and they're looking for an opportunity to destroy America. That's the implicit claim here. In reality, Hamas is a little occupied with what's going on in Israel and don't have the time to mess with the United States. And if they were going to mess with the U.S., they wouldn't do it by coming over the border surreptitiously. They would do it by coming in completely above board, not raising suspicions, not making anybody think anything's going on or whatever. That's how the 9/11 hijackers did it. They came in above board and took flying lessons here in the United States, and they were model citizens until the day came that they were going to perpetrate 9/11. You don't want to raise suspicion by having to go through this whole documentation process and everything else. You want to be a model citizen if you're going to do something like build a sleeper cell out or whatever. But, logic doesn't matter to these people, doesn't connect, it's irrelevant.
And then acquiring power. Remember, Hamas was elected into power by...
Just want to put this on record so everybody understands when they hear this propaganda. The election of Hamas took place 20 years ago. Half the people that live in Gaza right now are 18 or under. Half of the people. When you do the math, it works out to only 7% of the people alive today in Gaza took part in that election, and maybe even voted for Hamas. Only 7%. And of course, elections have not happened since then because it's a terrorist group that's in power. Why would they hold another election? Aside from that, anybody who is opposed to what Israel is doing right now is liked generally by the by the Gazan people, because what Israel is doing is fucking horrific. But okay, let's continue.
I remember it was like 2008. I was nutty. I was getting off an airplane in Providence, Rhode Island, and I said, wait a second. The PLO has voted in Hamas as their government. Well, what you're looking at Columbus Square is the location
Why do they keep calling it Columbus Square? Is there a different place called Columbus Square? Let me look this up. I'm super curious now. Wait, okay. Oh, interesting. There is a Columbus Square, apparently. So what is Columbus Square? All right, so Columbus Square, this is Manhattan, this island here. Manhattan Island. Goes all the way down here like so. And these rivers, the Hudson River, the East River, they're not rivers. They're straits because they are part of the ocean. They are salt water, not fresh water, and they feed directly into the ocean. They're straits, not rivers. So this is Central Park right here. Let me blow up my mouse. So this is Central Park right here, this big green spot. Right down here is Times Square. Empire State Building is south of Times Square. Grand Central is directly across from Times Square. So Grand Central is like, I don't know, 5 blocks away or something from Times Square. Right across from it. And there's a little known fact, if you ever come to New York City, there is a subway a train that goes from Times Square to Grand Central. And it's called the S train. That's all it does. Grand Central, Times Square. Grand Central, Times Square. Anyways, yeah, Bryant Park, that's pretty famous too. Garment District, Hell's Kitchen. There's an area in Chelsea called Billionaires Row because billionaires live in Chelsea a lot of the time. Or Tribeca. Tribeca, which is right in this area here, I believe. Tribeca is where Jay-Z lives, Beyonce lives, Ariana Grande, and a bunch of other people like that. So there's a Herald Square down here and a Union Square, right? Well, Herald Square was named after a newspaper, the Herald, in the area. And the New York Times was another newspaper, and they got super jealous of the fact that the Herald had their own square named after them. So they bribed the mayor of the time so they could get a square named after them. And that's how Times Square came into existence. Times Square is actually a square segment, with square blocks, and it's split into 2 triangles. The hypotenuse of the 2 triangles is Broadway. One triangle is Times Square, one triangle is Hell's Kitchen. So you can see Hell's Kitchen and Times Square are here. This is Times Square. This is Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen's also known as Clinton. That was its old name. Or Hex Kitchen. I prefer Hex Kitchen. I really love that name. It's so great. Do you spend all your YouTube money at those restaurants? No, I don't go to restaurants almost ever. Well, you talking 3 Michelin star restaurants? If I had $2,500 to light on fire, I could think of a few other things I could light it on fire for. So Columbus Circle, what I thought they were talking about, bottom left corner of Central Park, Columbus Circle. There's a mall over here and a bunch of stuff, and there's like a park, and there's a lot of stuff that happens here, like a lot of protests and a lot of events, stuff like that. I don't know what they're talking about with Columbus Square. This is Columbus Square. This is just a bunch of shops and stuff. Like, what the hell are they talking about? These people are at Columbus Square. No, they were probably at Columbus Circle. This is Columbus Circle. This is where a lot of like protests and things like that take place. So I don't know why they keep referring to it as Columbus Square, but it just tells me they have no idea how New York City is laid out or how it works or anything. But okay.
Location is important. The location is a symbol of Western civilization. Columbus comes and, in order to found or
Oh, please. Tell me you think that Columbus came to Manhattan. Please, lay that on me. Say it. Use those words. Columbus founded America first in Manhattan. Oh, my God, dude. This guy knows nothing about history. Certainly not New York history. It's absurd.
discover like the ocean blue in 1492, comes to the United States.
Oh, there's the only thing he knows about Columbus. The ocean blue, 1492. This is funny, dude.
Theoretically, he is attributed with being the explorer as a Christian who finds new lands. That's the reason why this location is...
Oh, and that's the other thing. So he knows two things about Columbus. Thing number one, he sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Thing number two, other people founded America before Columbus did. The Vikings were here before Columbus was, of course.
Chosen. It's a protest of pro-PLO against Western civilization. Look at how many of them have come into our country, and look how many of them, while we have 13 Americans that are hostage, these people are all cheering for the overthrow of Israel, and they're making their discontent known with the West.
No, I consider myself pro-Palestine, very much so. I'm not cheering for the overthrow of Israel. I believe Israel should exist as a state. I'm okay with that. But I want to try to really form out my idea here. The United Nations created Israel as a country originally, drew out the borders and everything. Here's what I would like. I would like for the United Nations to disintegrate the Israeli government completely and form out a new government that covers the entire area, everything, Jerusalem and all of the parts of Palestine. This is never going to happen. This is a complete pipe dream. I'm just telling you what I'd like to see. They disintegrate the government and reform a new one that is made up 50-50 of Palestinians and Jews, Palestinians and Israelis. Complete split right down the middle. And no extremists in there. I mean, the UN should hold elections and pick out the least extreme of the candidates and instate them as the first leaders. Write a brand new constitution and impose the constitution on the brand new single state. The new constitution says specifically nobody is allowed to remove these specific rights from the Constitution under any circumstances. The rights, everybody has a right to participate in this government as equal citizens. That's the very first thing that I would like to see inserted into this new Constitution. I want a single state where everybody is equal. Everybody has an equal share in the government and how it operates and everything. 100% fair. That's what I want to see. I'm not holding my breath. That's never going to happen. Anyway.
Western United States.
You know, what I want to know, and you're absolutely correct, but I want to know who organizes these things. I'll go to you, Rick. Who organizes these protests?
George Soros, of course, right? I mean, that's the implication. Just people. People organize these protests. But the inherent implication they're trying to lay down here is that some secret cabal is organizing these protests. And nobody actually knows who it is or what this cabal is made up of or any of that other stuff. It's all complete garbage, all of it.
Well, Lance nailed it. I mean,
you could just look that information up.
They have a complete spider's web of often we always blame Soros, right? But it's true that he puts billions and billions of dollars into these organizations.
This is such a joke. Dude, how could he possibly be more on the nose anti-Semitic? Really? Soros is their Jewish boogeyman. And it just blows me away that people buy this nonsense every time.
And they literally pay people to go do things like this.
No, they don't. That is an anti-Semitic trope.
And this, I mean, this can't be, I don't think we can emphasize this too much. What Lance is talking about is, what the founders called, they literally use this phrase, obnoxious aliens. In other words, they said, we have to have immigration at the federal level because if any one state starts doing bad policy, starts letting obnoxious aliens in, they'll go to the rest of the nation. We never dreamed it'd be the federal government that would actually allow anyone in that becomes obnoxious. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as we're literally saying they're dangerous to our nation. They're bad.
This is not happening. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. He's basically saying that the U.S. government is allowing terrorists to come in over the border and allowing them, giving them documentation and giving them jobs and allowing them to build sleeper cells in the U.S. It's not happening. It's completely nonsensical.
Bad for our nation. They're bad for our culture, whether they're living off the government and we're having to pay for it, or in this case, they're literally going against the government.
For the record, immigrants cannot get government subsidies or funding or whatever. If you are an immigrant, you cannot get food stamps, for example, to my knowledge. You can't get Social Security, I don't believe. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you're not entitled to. All of those claims that he just made are directly contradicted by that fact. Like, he doesn't even bother fact-checking what he says. He doesn't even bother pretending to know what he's talking about. Maybe he does know what he's talking about and is intentionally setting out to deceive. In fact, honestly, I think I'm leaning toward that one over anything else, considering the fact that this guy was a member of the state Congress in Texas, I believe, and on his way to being a judge, but didn't actually make it because he was not voted in.
Facing our monuments, that sort of thing. And then last thing I'll say on this, again, you look at the difference in these protests. This, just like the BLM protests throughout the summer, where they're willing to destroy and break things. It's why January...
I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm stopping every 15 seconds here, but I cannot let people get away with this, okay? Black Lives Matter protests were not violent, extreme, crazy things like they want it to, or like they want to portray it as. That's not what happened. Black Lives Matter protests were almost entirely, completely peaceful. There are a couple of instances where there were some violent outbursts. But interestingly enough, in at least a few instances, it was proven unequivocally, because we captured the guy, police captured these people, we got him on camera and everything. There were right-wing provocateurs acting to sabotage everything. They were burning down buildings. They lit the fires. These right-wing saboteurs lit the fires that burned down during BLM protests. You know why? They want to make it out as though Black Lives Matter was a violent movement when it simply was not.
Felt so out of place for us because our rallies all throughout the Tea Party movement, what you saw with the Israel rally, are always peaceful and always we clean up after ourselves.
Oh, give me a break, dude. Really? We clean up after ourselves even. We hold protests and people are really, really angry as they're protesting, but they pick up the trash afterward. Come on. Give me a break, dude. This is fascinating, actually. I know I keep kind of jumping off subject a little bit here, but check this one out. I have an old cartoon drawn about Martin Luther King Jr. Now, what was Martin Luther King Jr. best known for? I would say he was best known for his nonviolent approach, right? I'm comfortable saying that's what it was all about for him, non-violence. There were others in the movement that were in favor of violence, like Malcolm X, largely. Look at this old propaganda cartoon from when Martin Luther King Jr. was holding his protests and stuff. I plan to lead another non-violent march tomorrow. And there's a reporter standing there writing it down and seeing a dead body, houses and buildings and cars burning. And, it's complete havoc. This is the tactic that the right has used since the beginning. Portray the other side as violent, even when they're not. And portray our side as 100% peaceful and cleans up after ourselves and everything. It's a joke. I've had a Social Security number since I immigrated to the U.S. To qualify for Social Security, I'd have to work for 10 years minimum, which I haven't yet. Permanent residents are almost identical in rights and responsibilities to citizens. That is always potentially subject to change. Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. Let me rephrase. Refugees and visa holders are not entitled to entitlements, as you would call them, food stamps and stuff, to my knowledge. If you've been a permanent resident for a period of time and you're taking your citizenship test and everything, then I guess that's probably correct. You do get those things, but yeah.
Leave the park better than it was before. That's our Christian values. That's why we knew
Christian values, leave the park better than we found it before. Come on.
that what happened on January 6th was in many ways orchestrated from people outside.
You hearing this? Did you hear what he just said? We are Christians, and our Christian values dictate that we leave things better than we found it. And that's how I know January 6th was not orchestrated by Christians, because it caused a mess. And that means it was outside actors trying to make us look bad. You've got to be joking, right? This guy cannot be serious with this shit. He doesn't believe this. You can't convince me he believes this nonsense. He is simply trying to propagandize.
That's why we knew that what happened on January 6th was in many ways orchestrated from people outside the Trump supporters and outside our movement. So this is just telling once again.
First I've heard of it.
Again, of those organizations you're talking about, the amount of money they have and the amount of organization that they have, it's hard for us to come up with numbers, like Lance was saying, to combat that. But, man, they've got their – let me put it this way. Their people put their money where their values are.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why the left is so much better funded than the right, isn't it? Oh, it's not better funded than the right, you say. The right has like 15 times more money, you say. Huh, this is so insane. There isn't a single hint of fact to be found anywhere in this. And it blows me away that people just believe the bullshit that they're spreading without question. It seriously blows me away.
Our side, it's very difficult to get our people to support the kind of movements that we need to be supporting, and conservatives need to start putting their money where their values are.
Bingo. That's
These people are insane.
exactly what we have to do. We have to start. What's of importance to you? Is your way of life?
Your mother. Your mother is of importance to me. Can't get her off my mind. 24/7, she's knocking around in there. And I would bet anything that I'm on her mind, too, after the night we had.
Important? Is your belief, or is that important? The freedom to go to church, is that important?
Oh, yeah, because that's the first thing the left is going to do away with, right? Your ability to attend church services.
Then you're going to have to stand up for it and stand up for not being discounted, canceled, doxxed, whatever they want to do to get you to shut up. We have to stand up. But since
This is a joke, dude.
you brought this up, Rick, I want to show you what happened.
I'll tell you what. If you want to see more of this stuff, stick around. I'll have another video releasing about this soon. And, yeah, let me know what you think about these people. This is absolutely insane.